And then they bring the dead body of the king to this temple, where this temple was overlooking the river Nile in that ancient time. Now we have a branch from the river Nile, like a canal from the river Nile. It's not far away from here, it's only something like half a mile away. In that ancient time, there is a canal attached from the river Nile all the way to here, until this area. And in front of the Sphinx, we discovered the marina, where the boats coming all the way to reach this area and docking in front of it. They are using the holy water from the river Nile, and the water of the ancient Egyptian time is a very holy. The water of the river Nile is very holy because they believe the source of it comes all the way down from heaven, and they believe it's represented the tears of Isis. Isis was the motherhood sponsor and the motherhood goddess in the ancient Egyptian time. They clean the body very well, and then they make one cut in the left hand side of the belly of the king for 15 centimeters and take the interior organs, all of it outside, mummify it very well, and then they need to keep the cavity full. Now they take the interior organs out of it, so when they come to roll it and wrap it with the linen, it will break down, and that's why they stuffed inside the body with some fat, and this fat mixed with perfume oil of lotus and lavender. Those أخلص شرح ممكن they mix this fat with the oil to keep the mummy in a very good smell and preserving the mummy from inside. So after they take the interior organs out, they mummified it and put it in 4 jars. We called it the 4 canopic jars. The only organ they keep it back again inside the body, as I mentioned today, it was the heart. They need it in the final judgment day, and I think you could understand that from the papyrus paper. We saw it in the papyrus factory in gallery. And then the brain, I speak about it before also, they take the brain and throw it away. We understand now that as our body contains 75% water, and that's what they do. They would like to embalm the body. To embalm the body, they have natron salt. They find it in the desert, and this natron salt, they find it in the desert as pieces of crystal of stone. They bring it from the desert for one depression 70 miles to the southeast of the pyramid. And that is the location, southwest of the pyramid, and that is the location of the storehouses of Joseph nowadays. That's why Joseph, when he was in Egypt, he was easy for him to recognize the location because the Egyptians were using the same location to get salt stone or natron salt from there. They crush the natron salt, mix it with perfume oil like lavender and lotus, and mix it with different kind of herbs growing in the desert. And by this way it became a very high concentrated formula. They covered the whole body with this formula for 40 days and 40 nights. Every single day with the sunrise, they remove the old formula and put a new fresh one. By this way, it's still all the time high concentrated. And it absorbs the liquids of the body out of it without cutting the skin and destroying the shape of the body. Because the shape of the body is very important. It is the first elements of the 5 elements. You remember the 5 elements? Body, heart. So body, it was the first one. So they need to keep the body as it is without cutting the skin. Because by this way they believe it will be resurrected complete and whole. Because in their concept, the body is a vessel. The body is a jar, a container. And what inside it and make it life, it is a spirit. So they need to keep the container in a good shape. By this way they preserve the spirit which is inside, and preventing the spirit from leaking away from the body of the king himself. After 40 days and 40 nights, the body embalming. So even the muscles and the flesh shrinking when it has no water in it. The only thing which is not shrinking very well and is causing some trouble to them, it was the skin. And that's why they need to make the skin with the same shape of the body. Let us imagine my arm now full with fat, water, muscles. But if I have no water in my body, my arm will be very thin, like the size of my 2 fingers. And the skin will be too wide. They would like to make the skin with the same shape of the body. And that's why the ancient Egyptian people, I think my ladies will know that very well. they create what we called it moisturizers. The best moisturizer ever exists, and the easy, simple one. Full cream milk, mixed with honey, mixed with drops of lemon juice and perfume oil. They mix it all of it together, and then they keep it in a jar made out of alabaster under the ground for 6 months. The alabaster jar, it absorbed the water out of it, and it became like a cream. And they are using this moisturizing cream to cover the skin of the mummy with it, and leave it like that for 1 week. During this 1 week, the skin had been moisturized already. And then they make bandage of linen, and here we face trouble. Nowadays, the best quality of cotton in the whole world, it is the ancient or the Egyptian cotton. The famous quality and the famous high quality of cotton in the whole world, it is the Egyptian cotton. T-shirts made out of cotton, scarves made out of cotton, but the best famous one, it is the bed sheets, which is, if you go to one big store like Giza, Marks and Spencer, something like that, you could have one nice bed sheet made out of cotton, could cost something like from 800 to 1,000, 1,200 US dollars. In that ancient time, the Egyptian people, they didn't grow cotton. They grow only linen. So what they do is they make bandage made out of linen. Maximum wide 15 centimeter wide and long for 1,260 feet long. And they cover the body piece by piece. So if we are talking about the hand, they cover each finger separately. And then they put the cover, which is made out of gold, like the finger cover we saw today in the Egyptian museum, and then they cover the whole fingers together. They make 7 layers of bandage like that. But before they use the bandage, they would like to wet the bandage, make it wet. How they make it wet? They put it in a jar full with perfume oil and leave it for a while until those bandage absorb the oil. And then they are using the bandage while it is wet like that to cover the body with. By this way, it's easy to stretch in their hands. And while they are stretching like that in their hands, it's still wet because of the perfume. After they finish covering the body, 7 layers of bandage, and they put between the layers some amulets, like the one we saw today in the Egyptian museum, and by the entrance of the mummy room. They put it in the sun, in an open temple, open air one, no ceiling, so the sun could go everywhere. And by this way, because of the heat, Egypt has a very hot weather, and I think you could notice that already. So by the hot weather of the sun, by the heat of the sun, the perfume evaporates. And when the perfume evaporates while the bandage are stretched over the body, it makes the skin, which had been moisturized already, taking the shape of the bones. That's why today when you go to the mummy room, you saw the arm of Ramses II, right? His arm is so thin like that, and the skin attached to the bones itself. If you just think of it for a while, no one could have this small size of the arm like that. But he became like that after the embalming procedure, uncovering and moisturizing the skin. After that, they cover the whole body with jewelry. And they are using over than 270 pieces of jewelry to cover the body with. All different kinds of jewelry you could imagine. Earrings, rings, bracelets, chains, necklaces, daggers, everything you could imagine. And then they cover the face of the king itself with a mask made out of pure gold, 14 kilograms of gold. And then they bury him in a coffin made out of pure gold, carrying him over the shoulder and using a causeway connecting between this temple and the pyramid. And then they bury him inside the pyramid and close the whole area in the pyramid, and that's it. It takes 70 days to finish this procedure of mummification. We have 3 different levels of mummification. In the Old Kingdom, it was only for the king and queen of Egypt, no more, no less. Later, after Abraham and Joseph came to Egypt, now everyone are equal before God. So if someone would like to have a mummification and he could afford to pay for it, why not? So that's why we start to have a second level of mummification. They finish it in 40 days only. And that is for the nobles, rich people, and high priestess of Egypt. And then we have a third level, which is they finish it in only 1 week, and this one for the upper middle class people. Unfortunately, the one they finish it in 1 week, it is destroyed it and vanished. We never find the mummy belong to that period. And if we got one mummy and we try to move it from its own coffin or sarcophagus, it became like a powder and collapsed all of it. But the one which is it made it in 40 days and 70 days, this one survived until today, like the one we saw it in the Egyptian museum today. We have only two exceptions. Non-Egyptian people and had been mummified in Egypt like the Egyptian people. Those two exceptions are two of the nation of God. Prophet Jacob or Israel and Joseph. It's mentioned in the book of Genesis, I think chapter 47 or 48, I'm not sure. When Jacob passed away in Egypt, Joseph asked his physician or ordered his physician, the servant, to mummify and embalm the body of his father. They embalm his body in 40 days and mourn 70 days. As the ancient Egyptian people who supposed to make it in 70 days. And then he takes the dead embalmed body of his father and he traveled all the way to the land of Canaan in the area of Shechem and he reburied his father there. And the second one, he was Joseph himself. When he passed away in Egypt here, I think book of Genesis chapter 50, when he passed away in Egypt, he was still in power and they embalmed his body in Egypt and buried him in a coffin in Egypt. And his dead mummy was exist inside the coffin for 400 years until the night of the Passover. When Moses gathered the Israelites, he remembered Joseph is asking his people to give him an oath. Don't forget me. God will remember you and he will deliver you outside of the land of Egypt going to the promised land. Take my bones with you. So Moses remembered that oath and he go and takes the bones of Joseph and they were carrying the bones of Joseph all the way when they go from Egypt until they reach to the promised land and bury him in the promised land. While Moses is leading the people, Moses was going and the coffin and the bones of Joseph was in front of them when they cross the Red Sea and when they go through the wilderness of Sinai. When Moses passed away at the top of the mountain of Nebo and he didn't enter the promised land, Joshua still keep the oath and he carry the bones of Joseph with him until they reach to the area of the promised land and bury him there. That is almost everything about mummification. Now you will have your own free time and Mr. Tommy will give each one of you a ticket. You have two different ways. If you are satisfied with your photos, you got it here, no problem at all, and we will go to have our boss. If you would like to walk like those people here in this street market and where the hustles and street vendors and walk like those people a little bit forward there and take photo from there and come back, you got the tickets and that's allow you to go inside this area. The way to go to this area, left hand side and then left to make like a U-turn around the corner to the left hand side and you could walk in this area, let us say for 10 minutes and then we'll meet back again here to go to our bus. 10 minutes is okay?
Yep.